Wouldn't it be easier just to leave this village?
Welcome back to another episode of It's Too Bad, the show where we watch the worst movies and try to find their silver linings. My name is Jason.
I'm Ted, and today we're in March, and we have a March-themed film for you.
Sort of.
It's Leprechaun Origins.
Leprechaun Origins, relatively new, 2014. If you've watched any of the Leprechaun films ever, this has nothing to do with them.
No, so throw all that knowledge out, because there's nothing about it.
WWE films.
Which I didn't know why they needed to do this. I thought the Leprechaun was going to come out like The Undertaker, but no.
Nothing like that.
No, nothing like that.
And they didn't use Warwick Davis as the Leprechaun. Warwick Davis is kind of the reason we see the Leprechaun films, anybody that's seen them. They chose to use one of their own wrestlers, Hornswoggle, as the...
Is that his wrestler name or real name?
I hope it's both.
Okay.
I guess he kind of is like a leprechaun in the wrestling world, or at one point was. In this, not so much.
Oh, he was?
I guess.
Is that why they cast him in this?
Yeah. Well, that would have been nice to see.
We are missing the key ingredient of what Leprechaun should be. Leprechaun is the little guy that is wisecracking and he just wants his gold back and he'll bite your finger off for it. Not this murderous, as we both said, orc from the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Doesn't the Leprechaun come over to America and in the hood and in
space?
Like, he's not in Ireland waiting for you to come find him. But apparently this one, he is, because he terrorizes a village of 3 people.
Yeah.
And they're going to sacrifice Americans for him. There are a few good things. Like you said, 2014, filmmaking is not as hard as it used to be.
Right.
So you should be able to at least fumble your way through a horror film.
Right.
Which this kind of did. I felt like some of the scenes had a lot of intensity that I didn't expect, because I didn't care about these characters. They don't make you care.
Right.
But there were some scenes that you're just like, oh, whoa. The music with the really bad acting, but the screaming and stuff, you're like, I don't really feel good about any of this situation.
Sure.
So,
yeah, I thought the atmosphere of the film really played to what they were trying to accomplish, if they were trying to accomplish a regular horror film.
yeah.
Their biggest fault was that they tied it to a franchise that everyone's seen. This is the 7th movie, but it has nothing to do with it. It's the Troll 2 to Troll as this is to Leprechaun.
The other 6 movies did they have Warwick
Every
Davis?
single one of them.
And so this one, they were just like, no.
And we don't get an origin. This is set in a time later than...
Yeah. So there was this leprechaun, Warwick Davis's leprechaun that terrorized, and now there's just a whole nother group of leprechauns, which leaves you to think that there's a bunch more.
Right.
Because at the end scene, it feels like there's like a bunch more coming. So this wasn't just one, which I always thought was weird, because how did it get to the truck? There was some scenes where you're like, he's just not, there's no way. So there had to be more than one. But there's no little fun Lucky Charms guy that we all wish there was.
Hornswoggle, as an actor, we don't know what he's like, because he literally is a man in a costume jumping around. The camera's never on him for more than a second, and it's always blurry and shaky cam, and you don't even get to see what he really looks like. And I think it's because they stole a costume from Lord of the Rings. They don't want to show off too much.
Copyright, yeah.
But he claims he never watched any of the other 6 Leprechaun movies because he didn't want that to affect his performance.
Which makes sense, because if he watched it, he would have been like, oh, that's what they want. Because that's the point. It's supposed to be a fun, I mean, it's a horror film, but it's at least when they die, you're like, nah, he gave him a little joke at the end, but come on.
I guess you would call her the main character. Like you said, during the tense scenes, really effective at some points. The problem is she would kind of forget where the scene was when they start to shoot the next shot, and so it would go from really high highs to totally normal, everything's okay. When you murder your best friend accidentally, you would think that 4 seconds after screaming in total terror, amazing performance right then and there, you would think that you would still kind of emotionally be in that place when you get out the door. But once she was out the door of the building, it was like nothing ever happened. Another one of the actors that I thought did a good job was the Irish man in the pub that brings them to the home where he's basically going to sacrifice them to protect himself and his family. And I thought in the opening scenes, he did a very good job of kind of being mysterious. You knew something was up, but you didn't know really what was going to happen. You didn't know if he was in on something. As far as the writing goes, his character kind of laid out the exposition in a way that we didn't have to hear a backstory. It was almost organic.
Even though I know it wasn't Warwick Davis, I figured something like that would appear.
Right.
And then when you realize this was a whole different story, I could go with it, and I kind of forgot this was part of the Leprechaun story, because when they kept saying Leprechaun, you think of the little fun leprechauns.
That's not a leprechaun.
No, and I don't know, maybe I didn't do research. Maybe there is an origin story of leprechauns where they were that evil. I just figured they were like the Lucky Charms guy. Like, I didn't think that they were even that upsetting. Even at the end, you hope for the thing to speak or something to say, you know. And yeah, but nothing. It gets nothing. And you're, what a disappointment. It was a disappointment.
It was.
But it wasn't the worst movie we've seen by far. So I think the music actually was really good in this film. Ireland, the music that they had for that to set the scene, I thought all of it was good. And then when we got into the more intense scenes, the music picked up, and it felt really, really well done. Like they did a really good job on the music choice, which helps in, you know, with that intensity. But there's no like Blair Witch soundtrack, you know. It wasn't, we're gonna try to do something different. You set the scene in Ireland, we're in Ireland, and then we go into our horror film, and it slips right into every other horror film music that we've heard,
exactly.
So.
And that's because the horror elements could have been anywhere. It wasn't an Irish horror film. It was just a horror film that you found out earlier on you were in Ireland. There were some moments where certain shots I remember, especially when they're in the cabin, that are lit really well, that are sort of aesthetically pleasing, and then everything else not bad, just sort of plain. I feel like even within the same scene, the shot to shot, the color grading went crazy. It was really red on one part and really blue, green. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that I don't know how many different cameras they were using, how many types. You know there was a GoPro in there because they sure liked to use it.
They really did.
Strapping it on somebody's
POV.
foot.
Yeah. What is this? I don't
Dragging
need
them
this.
through the woods.
Yep.
And so it's hard to match cameras, and I think that was just not a high priority for them. I think they could have done better, but they just kind of wanted to rush this out.
I don't think they were going, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
We're going to make this film, people will see it, and then maybe if we slap the Leprechaun name on it, people will see it because of that franchise. But like you said, the visual styles, they were fine. Yeah. Everything seemed to be okay, but you're right. There's a few things in there that I don't think they cared about because they weren't trying to make a great film. Right. They were just making a film.
A made-for-video film that happened to come out in theaters.
Yeah, I mean, you're WWE. Your production quality isn't going to be great.
One thing that they did do, I thought, pretty well visually was some of the effects, the gore, the horror and gore effects. Some of them really hokey, but a lot of them very, very realistic. There were body parts and things like that that looked like, you're like, wow, they probably sought out a good effects person specifically for this and maybe just filled in the crew around it.
Maybe.
But they thought out their effects. It's all practical from what I could tell. I don't remember any CG in it. No. And they made it feel like a down-home horror film and not like a sci-fi whatever.
Right, and the way these people die, it's more gruesome than I thought.
Sure.
I thought, in the other Leprechauns, I don't remember thinking, dear Lord.
Well, I think like you're talking about the finger, biting a finger off. Yeah. I saw that probably when I was like in 6th grade. And so that still sits in my mind. But I don't think anything was much worse than that back then. But this was like Mortal Kombat.
People, heads getting chopped in half. You got your spine being pulled out. Like it was pretty gory for this. I was not expecting it to reach that level. But once the first death happened, they just tried to outdo each other on the next one.
Sure.
Like when you see the guy disassembling the spine, you're like, I was unaware that I was going to see his spine today. This isn't the worst film we've seen.
No, not by a long shot.
I'm not going to, if you're going to watch a marathon of 7 Leprechaun films, I don't know where you put this one in it. Like if you have to watch them all, I mean, do you watch it first since it's origin story?
I kind of feel like you do if you're devoted to watching all 7. Okay. Because if you're not devoted to it, you'll stop after this one and just not have any interest.
True.
But I really feel like the other franchise, and I'll say other because they're not connected.
Right.
They have so much more to offer. And if you like one, you'll probably giggle your way through the rest of them. True. I have to say that when I was looking for which Leprechaun is the worst, I found 5 separate lists with all the films ordered. Every single one was different. except every single one had Leprechaun Origins as the worst. And so I knew we had to cover this because we had to find out why.
Yeah.
And you said you've watched it all the way up to what, In the Hood?
Yeah.
So that was number 5. You did good.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't know there was. Did they go back to
They
the
went
hood?
back to the Hood. That's
Oh,
6.
that's-
And I didn't do that one either.
I didn't
So
see
we
Back to
both.
the Hood. We should see that.
Let's dive into that one as a palate cleanser.
Yeah. Who would have thought you would have said that about any movie?
As far as rating this, and the way we rate things is, this is any normal movie review, but it's from here to there. We can't go up that far. We know our films are bad, so the best we can do is right here, which is, it's too bad you didn't give it a chance because it's not as bad as people say.
Right.
And right here is, it's too bad for another watch. And this is hard for me because I want to say the way they made it was an okay horror film.
Yeah.
But because of where they put it in the, in the timeline of Leprechaun, I'm going to have to put it sort of dead center.
Okay.
Because I wanted to like it more. And if I wouldn't have known that title, I would have kind of sat through it and maybe enjoyed a couple moments.
I think I'm right where you are right there, yeah. Because I'm not going to go out and rush out to see it again.
Right.
And if it's on, maybe at the certain scenes where the girl gets her head split open, you might want to see that again.
Stick around.
But yeah, you don't want to see the first half, but the second half picks up. Everyone's into the B horror films, and the ones that are bad, like Sharknado, where they're trying to make it bad.
Yeah.
And that's not where we're at in the show. We want to watch films that are trying to do something, and they just miss the mark. It only misses the mark because it's Leprechaun. Right. If you like this video, go ahead and like and subscribe. Don't forget to leave your comments below, and we'll be back in 2 weeks here with a brand new film, and next week we'll be diving into Leprechaun Origins even more on our podcast.